And we are live. Hi everyone, I'm Roberta, TranslaStars content manager, and I'm here today with Miguel Sepúlveda, Global Localization Manager at King. So hi Miguel, how are you?
Hey Roberta, I'm doing very good. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. So we're here today to talk about overcoming cultural challenges in game localization. But before we start, please remember to drop your questions in the chat if you want to ask Miguel anything. And also please remember that this interview will be recorded so you can catch up on it later. And are you ready, Miguel?
Sure. Let's do it.
Okay. So let's get started. My first question is about your background, because I think that your journey to becoming globalization director at King is kind of inspiring. So I will ask you, could you please share some insights about how you landed this role? And I also know that you have a background in computer engineering because I did my research. And how does it intersect with your passion for localization?
Yeah, so there is one part which is all related with keep working, because I don't think that you can have like a clear plan around I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do that, because that's not how it works, at least for me. Particularly because when I started in the localization industry, back in the 90s, there was no such as localization thing as now, in the sense that there were no studies. I mean, sure, you could study philology and all these kind of things, and you can become a translator, but it was not like now that you have more access to being like a content creator or a copy editor, and you could have like a specialization in marketing, life science. So for me, it was just like stay in the industry and trying to being very curious and learn in each of them. I think that um, I do really believe that good jobs, you shape them. There is no like the ideal job concept, at least for me. So what I'm always trying to do is that I try to do more of what I like and what I think that it much better my skills, and less of the others that for different reasons I'm not good at. And I've been always trying to do that, trying to find what like bullet points I can add to my job descriptions, and always trying to look for job opportunities where I can play more my strengths. So in terms of how I am creating that, it's like at the beginning, it was just a question of being in the industry because there was so much things to learn, and I just wanted to have a lot of exposure. So I was doing a lot of things related with QA and localization QA, and then more like a kind of project management work for different type of content, for different type of industries. Particularly when I was working for Lionbridge, that since it was and it is a huge vendor, it gives me it gave me a great opportunity to try to understand which were the different challenge of the clients, because there were many clients I have exposure, and that gave me like working for 11, 12 years at the vendor side. It gave me like enough food for thinking around which are the challenges that different clients were having. And then in a way I was trying to map what I like it. So it's true what you mentioned, that I started as a computer engineering, but as my career evolved, I was more interested in people and culture, and I studied more around management and human resources and psychology. So back in the days I did a master because I was more familiar with computer programming than with dealing with a team. I was not sure how to do performance reviews, and I was not sure how to do all these kind of things. So those are things that I was having to say, okay, I need to know how to do this. I need to know how to do that. Little by little, I found that I was having more skills related to leadership than to pure operations of localization. So yeah, it was a little bit of self-discovery, research, being with the eyes and ear open, look for opportunities. That's how I landed at Kin almost 10 years ago. I was thinking back in the 2014, because back in those days I was working in the gaming industry, but I was working in the console. And I was thinking that mobile seems to be something interesting, like 10 years ago. And I was thinking it might be interesting to find a way to be working in the mobile industry because mobiles seem cool and powerful. And then, yeah, keeping, as I said, my eyes open, and then all in the sudden, this opportunity of working at Kin and being part of Candy Crush makers appear, and in the end, I got this opportunity. So it's been a little bit of luck, planning, just follow the instinct. I don't think there is a recipe, but yeah, I'm happy with the outcome.
Since you mentioned working for a mobile gaming company such as King, could you share some unique dynamics to this environment, and what are the specific challenges that come with globalizing for this industry?
Well, there are a few, and one of the big ones for our industry is there's a lot of content and the frequency of the content. So that's where all these continuous localization and agile methodologies are coming, and sprints and updates. That there are some companies, some mobile companies that you may have new content every day, others is going to be every week or every 2 weeks, depends really on the sprint. But that requires like a good setup in terms of how do you ensure that you are able to deliver 20 plus languages when you have continuous content to localize coming to you, because that means that you need to have all the mechanisms in place in terms of having the network of localizers, also having the structure internally in the company with the framework, and to ensure how all that content is gonna flow through the different channels, because that's another challenge in the gaming companies or in the mobile companies, which is that there are this diversity of platforms and diversity of channels, because you can start a conversation and you can localize content for the mobile, but then you can have some sort of a cross promotion through different channels in PC and in the mobile, and then you can think how you are going to bring this to email communications or social media. So the kind of journey, it has many touch points, and each of them it requires a slightly different approach in terms of managing of the content and the localization. So speed delivery is definitely one of the headaches, because when you need to deliver in complex languages, Japanese, Korean, you do need to have a good structure there to ensure that you have all your fonts and everything supported. So the tech part of it is really tricky, and there are many layers if you keep thinking, because then you have like the device fragmentation, that so many different mobiles, so many different screen size, and Android and iOS. So how do you guarantee that you are not having text truncation in all these different screen sizes? How can you ensure that all these global payment methods are working? Because when you have one application that is global, and you can purchase something in Turkey or in Japan or in the States or in Italy, it's going to be different currencies. How do you test that? How do you see that the currency is working? So there are many different little things that they are just coming because of the unique ecosystem that is the mobile. But to summarize, for me, I think that the speed of delivery is one of the big things. Also, sometimes that it might be compared to other platforms, the fact that the volumes are relatively small when you are in a kind of continuous localization. And that's actually a problem in a way, because sometimes it's easier to have like, I don't know, 1 million words and to know that you have this amount of time to do it. And this is your localization team. And you have everyone very engaged with the projects, and you have like their full attention. Sometimes that's easier than, hey, I need these 20 words in all these languages, and I need them today or tomorrow morning. And that's trickier because sometimes it's way more difficult to managing small number of words with aggressive deadlines than the other way around. And that's very typical in the mobile industry. In the mobile industry, you will not see thousands and thousands and thousands of words on a regular basis. There's one time that, yeah, you might have the app, the game you are releasing, that's fine. First time, first update, sure, you have it. But then when you enter in a kind of cruise control mode and it's more like business as usual, you need to find a way to have a structure in place that you can have one tutorial. You just need to localize one tutorial, 2 sentences. That's nothing for localization standard. But those 2 sentences are very important because it's going to be the differences between players or users understanding what they need to do versus what they don't need to do. So I find that quite unique when you combine the speed of delivery with a random number of words and aggressive deadlines. So yeah, that's quite unique of the mobile industry, I would say.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We have a question from Sandra about, I think, the mobile industry, and she asks, I'll share the question with you. How can a voiceover talent apply to this kind of project?
The good thing with mobiles is that they are becoming consoles, and that's important for audio and voiceover, because a few years ago it was not that common to have voiceover or even sophisticated audio in mobile games because there was no space in the phones. The hardware was not there. Now everything is different. And last week we saw the presentation of the new iPhones that actually they are like consoles. Technically, it's a console. And they are even bringing AAA games like traditional PS5, Xbox games into the games. So this is evolving. And every year we are seeing more titles that they have more and more. So there is an opportunity there. There are the traditional ways, which is like going to the big companies that they are going to be always looking for voiceover specialists. So in our case, our sister companies, because King is part of the group of Activision and Blizzard, they have a lot of voiceover in their titles. Recently, they launched Diablo, and they publish the offers. So this is going to the websites of the big AAA companies like the Ubisoft, the Activisions, the EAs, Blizzards, all of them. Those are the companies that they have more voiceover. So having the yellow bars, it's important there. And then there are localization vendors that they are specialized in voiceover, and they are continuously looking for talent. So you might get in touch with those vendors that they are like in this space. In gaming, there are some vendors that they have studios that they are really focusing voiceover. Keywords might be one of those vendors that they provide voiceover for games. So yeah, it's just to be there. Sometimes you need a portfolio, so it will be important to have your own portfolio, similar as they have with the artist. So if you are planning to apply to these projects, as Sandra is mentioning, you might be required to show some sort of portfolio or expertise, and then it's going to be different if you are applying for the first job opportunity, or if you can share some experience in some projects. So in that sense, that's the best way of doing it. A lot of LinkedIn, networking in LinkedIn, and looking for those opportunities is there. So it requires a proactive approach, but there are opportunities, and I think that there will be more, because as I was mentioning, mobile phones are becoming real powerful, and they are computers and mobile consoles nowadays.
Yeah, they're everything all at once.
Yeah.
So you mentioned two headaches, speed and something else, but you didn't mention cultural sensitivity, which I think could be a problem in game localization. Could you please expand more on that? And are there some intriguing cultural challenges that, I don't know, players might not be aware of?
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, the games, same as it can be with movies, it's creative content, and they are telling a story. So when you think about all these topics about gender, geopolitical, maps, flags, religion, that's a minefield. And that's something that you need to plan properly. I mean, there are different cases of examples of some games, some movies that they made some mistakes. And the thing is that nowadays, when there is a mistake, because it's in social media all over the place. So yeah, there are things that you need to put into consideration there. Audits are very important. I always say that I divide this culturalization aspect in like the proactive culturalization and the reactive culturalization. In the proactive culturalization, it's what you can do in this type of content, movies, games, to ensure that you are building a connection with your local players, viewers, and how can you adapt their experiences to something that they recognize. So in the case of games, you can see that that's something you can do by changing the game mechanics, something that you can do to change the look and feel of the characters. We know that the look and feel of a game in Japan or in Europe is going to be different. Just the way they are dressed, the way they are designed, they are very different when you think about manga, or when you think about the concept of beauty in the Japanese versus the European or American market. Being fit, it's different. So there are some things that you can do there in terms of how you customize your characters, the music you put, the colors you use, the art you use, the jokes you use, the narrative that you use. So you can think about what's popular in one country from like a content perspective, from the narrative line, from the visual line, from the visual design, and you implement as much as you can there. I do really like, and probably you notice that Disney, Pixar, they are doing a lot of this in their movies. Star Wars, it's an example that they are trying to think like, okay, diversity, what's meaning diversity nowadays? And they are having a lot of different diversity in Star Wars. Or in Disney, you can see that nowadays you have female heroes or black heroes, while in the past it was the typical, Spider-Mans and all these kind of things. And now you have Captain Marvel, who is a female, and Black Panther, who is a black thing. topic. So it's like, what can you do that you can create that it's resonating with your local audiences? And you follow more the same approach in games than in movies. Then you have everything which is reactive culturalization, which is just basically you audit the content and you see if there may be some problems with the flags, with the maps, with the religion, with the music. There are multiple examples of this. The the latest one, I think it was from this summer, from Barbie, that it was banned in Vietnam because of the way that it's represented the sea and the dispute they have with China and everything. And you don't really think like that because it's like one scene in the whole movie, and it's one scene, and it's enough to be banned the movie. And the same is happening with the games. There's been some games that there's been some music that is from the Quran, and then it's been banned because it's a religious topic, and you are not supposed to mix religion with fun, to be respectful with that religion. There's been other cases with fighting games where you are having one Muslim fighter, and then they do the Christian cross before the fight, and then it's like, well, I'm Muslim, so I'm not really doing that, right? So you need to change that. So there are different examples that they are happening here and there. Every time, I always say that every time that there are maps and flags and religion, be very careful because there's gonna be a potential way of offending, and it's very difficult to be on top of everything. So that's why it's really important to be surrounded with culturalization experts that you can rely on them and that you can help them, ask them for help to get some sort of support if you want to launch your game in Asia. What do you need to take into consideration in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in Vietnam, so they can help you to find this, because usually it's like you don't know what you don't know. So most of the mistakes that I saw is no bad intention. It's like you don't really know. So it's something that it may look exotic according to our eyes, but then it's not really appropriate. So it's really, really, really good to have like an opportunity to work with these companies. In the end, what you end up doing, and this is what we've been doing, by doing this type of work for many years, you have like your best practices, and you have like the things that you need to avoid. So when you go to best practices, you're going to say, okay, so this is what we should do in China. In China, the way that we design one live ops campaign is by having a lot of red, because the meaning of that color in the Chinese culture is going to be very different from Europe. And then let's create a lot of colorful campaigns and design that we are showing red. Let's try to understand what's the important events for them in terms of calendar celebration. Let's try to think how we can do a Chinese New Year or a Golden Week for Japan. And in the end, you collect a list of best practices. And the same goes to Europe. If you want to do some events for St. Patrick's Day, is that something that is going to be relevant in all the world or in some regions? And you can always influence this from like a localization, globalization perspective, giving feedback to your stakeholders if this particular content is going to resonate. And if the answer is no, what may be the equivalent? So if there is one event to do some celebration for the 4th of July in one application, in one game, for the United States, what can we do in other countries that particular weekend? So it's perceived like relatable. So Culturalization is super important, and I believe that actually is what it makes the difference. And I believe that the localization teams, we are in a unique position because a lot of these things it's related with gender, with inclusive language, and we work with that. I mean, we are used to that. Now that we are seeing all this conversation about inclusivity and diversity and remote working and everything that it has happened after the COVID, I think in the industry we've been doing that, and we are very well aware of the meaning of words and how important is being inclusive in the way we talk. And our teams by default is been always very diverse with people from different nationalities and speaking different languages. So I think we have a lot of to give and contribute to everyone that for one reason or other did not have the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. So, spoiler alert for our audience. So, you will be one of the instructors of our brand new localization management program that is starting in 2 weeks, at the beginning of October. I'll drop the link to the program in the chat, but I wanted to ask you if you have some pieces of advice for aspiring localization managers, and also if you have some for more aspiring mobile games translators. So both of them.
I think nowadays, as I mentioned at the beginning, when I started or at the beginning, there was not that much specialization. And it is what it is, but now it's totally different in the sense that you can take many different career tracks when you are working in the localization industry. So you need to understand what you want to do, because there's going to be at least one path that is more related with the adaptation of the content itself. So the typical translation opportunities, that's going to be something that you need to make a decision if you want to be there, more in the hands-on. The other one is that there are different management opportunities. And if you really like translating content, maybe you should not think about being a project manager or a team leader, because then it's going to be more like pure project management. You are going to be more working towards processes and budgeting and vendor management and team dynamics. So very different skills to acquire if you are into that direction. You also have sales, all these roles that they are in localization that they are related with sales. The skills are going to be very different from translators or writers or project managers because it's a very different one. So my recommendation is that you take the time to understand, for someone who is thinking about joining the industry, understand the spectrum of different roles, because they are very different. And I've seen many cases of people that they are landing in one that is not really aligned with their strengths, because maybe they don't feel comfortable doing sales, and they are in a role that it requires more like a client face and selling, and they prefer other type of job. Or the other way around, some people that they are really like connecting and talking, and then if you give them one role that is more like a project management, they are not really happy because it's not like a good fit. So that's very important. Take the time to understand which are the roles. Take the time to understand which are the different skills. There are multiple resources out there, and actually you were mentioning earlier about the course, but there is going to be one lesson in that course that I'm going to be talking about the different job opportunities and which are the different skills that you need to master for each of them, because they are very different. They are very, very, very different. So that would be for something that is considering. Then the gaming industry itself is very unique in the sense that it's is very passionate. People working in the gaming industry, they really love games, particularly people working as translators. They really love games. They grew up playing the games. That means that the best advice is that you need to really know the gaming jargon, because I can tell you that we are able to distinguish when you're having a generic localizer versus a gamer. That's going to put them in a very different track in terms of a client preference that, hey, I want to work with that person because she or he knows everything about the game, and you can feel how it's adapting the boom, the jokes, all this kind of casual talking. They are able to do that. So you need to know about that, and then that's entering in the industry is not easy, to be honest. You can try to do it through some of the vendors. Getting in the industry at the client side, to be totally honest, is not easy because the demand is kind of low in the sense that many clients outsource to vendors. So internal opportunities, they are not that common. It's a little bit easier working at the vendor side. So there, what is going to be very important is to show some experience, because they have hundreds of candidates. Something that is very powerful there is that at the beginning you might be willing to do some volunteer work, and that means being part of crowdsourcing gaming projects, because at the beginning what you need is experience, and it's a loop. So you can get this experience in some platforms such as Steam, but they are looking always for testers or translators. You are not going to be paid because it's going to be volunteer work, but it's going to help you to understand the dynamics of how it's working in the gaming industry, and you are going to build your portfolio. So then when you go to the clients or to the vendors, you can say, okay, I've been participating in this game and this game and this game and this game. That's going to change everything because it's going to be the factor that is going to change everything, because yeah, there are many candidates, but then if you can prove that you've been volunteering in these crowdsourcing activities, language jams, game jams, all these different possibilities, that's something that is going to help you. It's a growing market because video games, every year they are making a lot of revenue. There are new games, there are new platforms, so there are opportunities there. But at the same time, you need to have your focus on your strategy and get your experience, because otherwise it's going to be difficult that you stand out.
Mm-hmm. So I have a more of I don't know, personal question. I know that you have a blog which is called Yo Localizo, and I was asking myself if it has played any role in your career, and when and why did you start writing this blog?
When it was like 2016, so it's been a while. Why is 2 or 3 reasons. One is that I like giving back to the industry. I mean, everything that I have or I am has been because of the localization industry, and there are many things that I know now that when I started, it was impossible to know because there were no resources, studies, courses, workshop. It was very different. So I was thinking, okay, it would be nice if I can find a way to give back and explain what I've been doing. At the same time, it's really helpful in terms of clarity of thinking. Because when you start writing and you just try to brain dump your ideas and try to explain something, you realize that it's not easy, but at the same it's a challenge. And in a way, it helps me to improve the way I communicate my ideas. So there is also a kind of selfish approach here because it helps me to communicate better. So that's the second reason, and the third one is definitely is powerful as a personal brand attribute, because nowadays it's easy to be known or to be irrelevant. And in a way, when you are creating content, you have more visibility, and if the content is good and if what you do it's helpful or it's being helpful to others, there are opportunities coming to you that otherwise how you promote your own content, right? So I was thinking that from a personal brand perspective, it's important. So yeah, I'm more like a kind of writing person than like a YouTube channel, because I like more like thinking, and then the writing is just perfect for my communication style. But I think that it's important nowadays to find a way to build your personal brand, because we are in a global market, as we very well know.
Mm-hmm. I think that in a few months, maybe a year, I'll see you on Substack. Because it's the natural evolution, from the blog to the newsletter. So I think, I don't know, maybe I'm mistaken, but I don't know. I think that we
Could
will
be.
see you on Substack. It would be like I think the first newsletter about localization. So why not? There's a market there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, I
we
mean,
done.
I'm very open mindset in that sense. So yeah, let's see what's coming.
So we have no more questions, and I'd like to thank you for your precious time and advice today. It has been a pleasure, and I hope you have a great evening.
Likewise, thank you for having me, Roberta, and see you around.
Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.